Greetings and welcome to yet another segment of Mic Drop and Book Club sessions here on HSTV's Off the Menu. My name is Khumbulani Bandula Muleya. You can listen and watch for more programming excellence on Zimbabwe's first teleradio station, Heart and Soul Radio. You can also check out www.hstv.co.zw or alternatively visit the Heart and Soul Zim Facebook page as well as the Newsday Zimbabwe Facebook page. So previously on the show we have been talking about the Literature Bureau. The Literature Bureau is an institution that was set up within the Native Affairs Department of the Central African Federation to promote writing in indigenous languages. So I spoke to Mr. John Gambanga. Mr. Gambanga is a veteran author whose books passed through the Literature Bureau. I also had a conversation with Mr. Lord Wamanyika. He's a former editor with the Bureau. We have been having these conversations as part of an ongoing series where we seek to do an exploration of this history of Zimbabwean literature, and the Literature Bureau plays a central part in these conversations as we try to find out and have an understanding how it impacted Zimbabwean literature before and after independence. And also, through these conversations, we are trying to, explore the possibilities of creating something that can go beyond the previous designs of the Literature Bureau, just for the purposes of promoting our own narratives. And so we're going to be continuing with these, explorations. We're going to be continuing with this series. So this week, we are going to be reaching out to our brothers in Kenya, and I have the pleasure of talking to a brother of mine. His name is Richard Mbuthia. He's going to be joining me for book club sessions, and later on I will be joined by Mr. Dumisani Ndlovu, who's going to be joining me for Mic Drop, which is our spoken word segment. He's going to be joining us a bit later. So just to briefly introduce Richard Mbuthia, he's a teacher, a poet, a motivational speaker, as well as an editor, and he has been teaching English to children in Kenya as well as in Tanzania for something like 17 years. And he's one person who is passionate about helping to inculcate and develop the poetic craft in children. Richard has also published he has also published poetry in books, in magazines, as well as on different online forums and outlets. And we're going to be just talking about that as we continue with our conversation. Richard, thank you very much for joining us here on Heart and Source Off the Menu. Please just feel free to share your story, and maybe just as we kickstart our conversation, if you could just tell us who Richard Mbuthia is and when you began to be conscious of your passion for literature.
Thank you, Khumbulani, and thank you too for welcoming me to your show. As you rightly put it, my name is Richard Mbuthia. I'm a Kenyan. I was born in the late 70s. I'm a husband to one wife and a father to 3 adorable children, 1 girl and 2 boys. I'm a poet and a literary enthusiast. I love literature to its marrow, and in like manner, I love every drop of poetry. In fact, I love the 26 letters of the English alphabet, the way they set themselves together, the way they come together to form words, to form sentences, to form phrases, to form metaphors, just amazes me. My journey with poetry started in my high school days. I will write short notes and short poems for my fellow students, which they will share with their family, they share with their friends, they will share with their crushes in high school, and they will just marvel To me, they looked simplistic. I was just toying around with words, but to them, they found them worthwhile, and they struck a chord with them. These poems struck a chord with my classmates. And in my last year of high school, I was chosen as the editor of the school magazine due to my tenacity in English and English-related items. And this thing has stuck with me up to today, and it's not going anywhere. It's even becoming better and better every other day. It's like wine. Wine becomes better as the more it stays in the barrel. I've seen their love for poetry grow with me through the rungs of life and up the ladder of life. Every rung is a different milestone, and to me, I think the future is bright. As far as poetry and literature is concerned, the future is bright, and the best is yet to come. Thank you so much for that.
You're more than welcome, my brother. Tell me, how is the poetry scene in Kenya and generally the literature activity in the face of COVID-19? How are you and your community facing up to these challenges, and just making sure that you continue to be involved with literary activity?
Well, I will say that the poetry scene in Kenya has never been more vibrant and alive like it is today. We have seen a doubling and tripling of literary voices in the past few months. The COVID-19 situation has been a blessing in disguise. People have had more time to engage their poetic muscles and to streamline their creativity in this pandemic. Many poetic voices have been born in these very hard and tough times. COVID-19 has been a source of inspiration and fodder for poetry and literary voyages. For instance, a case in point is my literature lecturer at Kenyatta University, Dr. Wanjohi Wamakoha, started a poetry drive on his Facebook page dubbed Corona Chronicles. He reached out to poets all over or in different parts of Africa to send in their poems on their reflections and experiences bordering on the corona situation in their different locales. These poems will be updated daily as they came. It has been a tough time, but also it has been a blessing to literature. Many authors and poets have also had the time they were looking for to finish the books they have always wanted to write. And the time has presented itself during the lockdowns and the quarantines in different settings. And they have been put to good use. So I will say that literature has not suffered that much. In fact, it has grown by leaps and bounds, and we say it's a blessing in disguise, though we've gone through a hard time. We've also had meetings, the Zoom meetings, and to discuss poetry. Yes, we are told social distancing, no meeting people, no meetings. Meetings had been put on hold, but people went a step ahead to form groups, and that is Facebook groups and online groups like WhatsApp, and also coming and mooting Zoom meetings in which they would present their poetry that they were presenting face to face on stages. Now they're presenting virtually, and people are watching in their different locales in different parts of Africa. And basically, we've seen more people coming in because it was now involving more people all over the world. The internet has been put to good use during this time. Thank you for that question. Now, and in addition to that, I'm a member of a Facebook poetry group called Modern African Poetry. It is a group that was founded by Michael Mwangi Macharia, a poet who hails from Kenya. This group comprises of over 2,000 poets from Africa and of African descent. Now, during the Corona period, the group has been so active. It has featured so many poems and poets, whether established or up and coming. Now, when I look at it from in retrospect, it seems as if Corona was a catalyst of sorts that came about in order to rejig the creative faculties of poets, looking at the body of work that has been created during this Corona period. Thank you so much. I felt it very important to add that information.
Thank you very much for that, Richard. I'm glad to hear that you've been able to tap into so many positives during this global crisis of COVID-19. I've previously had some conversations with literary people around Africa, and I must say the response is very, very encouraging. Despite this global pandemic, a lot of creatives have been able to transform isolation into some sort of inspiration, and I must say that this is really, really encouraging, because COVID-19 has sort of ushered us into a digital era by default, and we've been able to embrace digital spaces. A lot of people have been able to harness these digital spaces. COVID-19 has brought in a new normal, and the current ways of doing things will not be changing anytime soon, and it's advisable that poets and writers adjust to adapt to these changes, because there's going to be so many major transformations in the future as we get into the fourth industrial revolution. We now have both our feet in the realm of the digital era. You have been working with children for a very, very long time in Tanzania and Kenya. I just want us to talk about the books that you have written, especially for kids. I think what you are doing is something really, really special in regards to the development of literature. There's no better way to do it than to start off at grassroots level. What motivated you to start writing children's literature? What sort of input are you trying to contribute towards the development of literature through children's literature?
Well, Khumbulani, thank you so much for your incisive questions. Well, I guess my own childhood and experience with books at an early age motivated me to want to see children appreciating books and reading as a whole. So working with children as a teacher was a plus for me as I ventured into trying to inculcate the edicts of reading and writing to the children and students who look up to me as their teacher. By and by, the idea of training children to write poetry was born. I started training my students the art of poetry writing in 2017, and up to date we have produced 3 poetry anthologies by children. We are working on this year's anthology. We are running against time because a substantial chunk of this year was taken by the unexpected closure of schools due to Corona. In 2017, we produced a book titled Letters of Gold. In 2018, we produced a book titled Bounding for Light, which incidentally was published by a Zimbabwean publisher, Monaka Publishers, which is run by Tendai Monaka. In 2019, we produced a book titled Sparks in the Dark. The 2017 and 2019 books were locally produced and printed in Tanzania. The 2018 book is available on African Books Collective. It's an online store and other online outlets. Principally, I work with pupils who are between 11 and 14 years. These are kids in their final year of primary school, that is class 7 in Tanzania. Earlier on, I said that the 26 letters of the English alphabet have always amazed me. The way the words dance on the pages and create images, images of splendor and reawakening, images of a heart that does not give up easily. You see, these are the same images that my communion with children's poetry seeks to tap into. Working closely with the pupils who write the poems in the books we produced has been an adventure to me. It has taught me to appreciate the intuitive perception of children in various issues, even those that may seem ordinary and uninteresting. I've learned that children too have their story, and that their desire is to be listened to, appreciated, and encouraged. Let me just say that again. I've learned that children too have their story, which most adults think otherwise. Adults think that children are there to listen, and not to be listened to, but they do have their story. And that the desire of these children is to be listened to, appreciated, and encouraged. You'll be surprised by how much you can open up a child by just listening to that child and appreciating what they're producing and what they're saying. Now, as these children step out of primary school, it is always my firm belief that their writing skills will have greatly improved by the invigorating writing exercises I give them. It is also my belief that as they start taking literature studies in secondary school, their interest in poetry will increase. This is because the foundation for the appreciation of literature has successfully been set. And that's what I'm trying to do even with these young children. I've been receiving positive reports from people who have gone through my classes and are now in secondary school. Some of them have gone on ahead to compile their personal poems in recordings and personal poems, and they want to publish them. You see, they have gone on ahead to compile their personal poems for publication, while others have gone on ahead to initiate poetry writing clubs and even hold poetry gigs in their secondary schools. It is, you see, it's a labor of love. These children, teaching children to write is a labor of love, and it takes a lot of patience, even from me. And to me, I just term it, or I just take it as a work in progress. It's still a work in progress. Thank you so much.
Indeed, children have a story to tell, and they definitely deserve to be given, opportunities and platforms to be able to express their creativity. What you are doing is very, very special. It's an important role that you are playing in the community. Regards to development of grassroots literature. Before I ask you to read some of your poetry, I would like to just take this opportunity to ask you to read out or recite some of the poetry written by these children that features in some of the books that you have been able to publish.
Well, thank you for that. I'll do a reading of 3 poems. The first one is from my book, The Setting Noon and Other Poems, and the other 2 are from the children's anthologies, Bounding for Light and Sparks in the Dark. Ode to the Charade, Zimbabwe. The bounding white army chanted, undemocratic, unparalleled injustice. The tardy, nay tacky, black army chorused, unrivaled travesty, perfect ambiguity. The international community whimpered, but the black man stood and stung, the virulent words falling on barren ears. Keep your noises to yourselves, he advised the white and black alike. The banding of colored words ensued, all parties pulling the frayed reins. Just before the snap of the frayed joints, the black man cleared his sooty throat. If thou deemest yourselves clean enough, be the first to hurl disjointed pebbles. The white and black armies cast unfurled glances and voluntarily retreated to their murky hovels. That's the first poem. The second poem is from the book Bounding for Light, and it's titled An Absentee Father. It's written by Gift Siame. Father's footsteps are heard for the first time in days. Mother gets up and holds a spade. Open the door! Father yells. Mom tells me to be still. Morning comes and we're all alone again. Mom's bruised yet flashes a smile my way. I see her holding back tears, but I'm not that strong. So I run upstairs and cry all day long. I sleep without a proper meal. I don't get it. What's his deal? Why did he marry my mother? Did he really have to become my father? I give up on him, for he'll only come back in my dreams, up to start fending for the family. I'm only 5. Why did he do this to me? Oh, Father, what have you done to Mother and I? You've left us all alone to fight life's battles on our own. This is so unfair. I dare say this so-called father is a bag of air. I pray I don't grow up to be him. From today, this father is no more to me. Yes, that's the second poem. The third poem is titled Girls, and it was written by Princessia Mrema. It's from the book Sparks in the Dark. Girls, a combination of sugar, spice, and everything nice. They are God's creation, the mothers of tomorrow. God is a great artist, and girls are the perfect masterpiece. So why abuse them? Why seduce them? They are human like you and have the calmest emotions. They have a voice, yet not given a chance to shine. All the torture they have been through makes them stronger, and they never give up. So why should you? If you're a girl, stand tall, never look back, and take over the world. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much for that, my brother. Just as we wrap it up, Jomo Kenyatta was known to be an intellectual man, and also wrote some books. Which other writers or poets have made an impact on Kenyan literature?
Well, thank you so much for that question. And it's also a technical question. The canon of Kenyan literature is one of the richest on the African continent. And Kenyan writers have played a decisive role in the promotion of African writing. Some of the names of notable Kenyan writers that quickly spring to mind are Ngugi wa Thiong'o, Binyavanga Wainaina, Yvonne Adhiambo War, Grace of God, Major Mwangi, Margaret Ogola, Marjorie Oluthe, Francis Imbuga, M.G. Vasanji, Kinyonjui Kombani, Muthoni Likimani, Tony Mochama, and the list is endless. Kenya has also produced notable poets on the African continent. You have poets such as Jared Angira, Jonathan Kariara, Kisa Amateshe, Luvai, and a host of many others. We also have other strong voices on the Kenyan poetry scene. We have poets such as Stephen Darwin Partington, Ngwatilo Mawio, Keguro Masharia, Sitao Namwalie, Phyllis Muthoni, Wanjohi Makoha, and a host of new voices of whom I'm part, that share their work on Facebook groups such as Modern African Poetry, on personal blogs, on poetry websites, and other such platforms. Thank you so much for bringing it up.
You're more than welcome, brother. Kenya has been like a shining light, a beacon for African literature. And, voices from Kenya, from Kenyan literature have been echoing in the valleys and the mountains of Africa, from, Cape to Cairo. And we are actually grateful to our brothers and sisters from Kenya for these revolutionary momentums, that have been, shared through the passage of time. My brother Richard, just as a parting shot, what sort of message do you have to our millions of viewers and listeners who are currently tuned in to this show?
Well, dear viewers and listeners, it is said charity begins at home. Rightly so. I call upon us to continue supporting African literature in word and deed. Let us buy more books written by Africans and level the fields for the publishing of more books that tell the African story. Let us champion for the emancipation of the African mind by the illuminating power of words and books. We are not children of a lesser God. Let us rise above our limitations and exemplify the greatness that we carry within us. This is our call. Thank you so much for listening to me, and God mightily bless you.
Thank you. Coming up next is a brief book reading by writer Emmanuel Sigauke. Soon after, I will be talking to multi-anthologized poet Mr. Dumisani Ndlovu, who's going to be joining us for our spoken word segment, Mic Drop. Enjoy the following.
Hi, I am Emmanuel Sigauke, the founding editor of Munyori Literary Journal. I'm also the founder of Chisia Writers Workshop, which is based in Mariwa, Zhishavane. I have written poetry and fiction, and I'm currently focusing on short stories, and I'm putting together a collection. So the piece that I'm going to read is from a short story that was once published in the Chronicle newspaper, and that's probably was 10 years ago, so now I'm revising it, so I will include it in the new collection of short stories. In this story, the protagonist has visited his girlfriend in Bulawayo, Sizinda, and spends a night pretty much, but things don't go the way he had planned, so he's even disappointed. So when he tells the aunt that he visited that he's leaving, something he didn't expect happens. So here it goes. What happened after breakfast when I mentioned that I was going to leave in an hour surprised me. It all started with Tete's eyes glinting in the direction of Vero, who shook her head to signal that she had nothing to do with it. And how about Sifelani? I thought I told you he said not to leave before he returns, Tete said. I'm so sorry, I said, but I just realized I need to get to the college before 3 to finalize some paperwork. That sounds like something you just made up, Vero said. You know I don't make up stuff, I said. You can come with me. After all, you know some people in Senga. She's not going anywhere, said Tete. If you have any shred of respect, you should know you just don't do that, treat someone like a prostitute. Both Vero and I were surprised by her words. Tete, I don't think he means it like that, said Vero. But you're right, if he's leaving alone, just the way he came. So what are you leaving us? Tete asked. I didn't have to think about this one. Lots of love. I'm leaving you gratitude and lots of love, I said. I mean something we can touch, feel, and smell, Tete said. I could tell by the darting of her eyes that she was getting upset. Even her lips quivered, but she bit them and looked down. Vero came to my rescue. She's talking about a sign, something you'll leave before you leave. Sign? I asked, shaking my head. Something to show commitment, Vero said. I'm sure you know what Tete is talking about. I must have taken too long to respond to Vero because Tete spoke before I did. Show us that we can relax knowing you are not planning to waste our time. Show us you will be visiting her parents soon. I wasn't really planning to visit her parents soon, neither was I planning to waste her time. What sign did they need? I couldn't, for instance, leave a book, and I didn't sure have enough money on me to offer as a sign. Vero clenched her jaws. Tete, can you just tell him what you want? She asked. And what has entered you? Tete said. Why are you pretending to understand his confusion? He knows what I'm talking about. I'm sure he doesn't, Vero said. Didn't you say he's from the raw areas? But that doesn't mean he knows anything. He told you live love. Lots of love, I said, getting very interested in what was developing here. Tete looked at us both and started to laugh. I was about to join in the laughter until I saw Vero's eyes. He will live love, he says. Does he even know what that is? Tete said, addressing the ceiling. Vero and I followed her eyes, but soon she turned her stare to me and said, that's not enough. And you two know that what I'm talking about. You both might think you are being funny because you are talking to me who is harmless. But the responsibility I now have because I've met you is very high. There was a moment of silence as we let her words sink in. She had spoken them with a shredded voice, like she was complaining about a raw-ass aunt. I understood the reasons for her fear, but I hadn't come to Sizinda for marriage plans. I had a whole college career ahead of me. How much do you love your jacket? Tete asked. Yes, the one you are wearing. How much do you love it? Oh, a lot. But not as much as I love you, I said, pointing at Vero. Good, Tete said, and I didn't know where she was taking this conversation. Leave it here. That will be a good sign. At least I'll be able to answer their questions when they start to grill me about all this. At first, I thought I hadn't heard her properly. Even Vero snorted in surprise. We both sat there looking at Tete's face. I was looking for some evidence that she was joking. I'll make sure no one touches it. Even Vero here cannot touch it. Then when you two make the things normal, I'll give it back to you. Perhaps that was the moment I should have laughed. The moment I should have told her I understood what she meant. The moment I should have offered to leave them something to show my commitment. Instead, I squinted at her, hoping there was no way she could be serious.
Wonderful. Coming up next, I will be talking to a multilingual published author. His name is Mr. Dumisani Ndlovu. He's going to be joining us next for our spoken word segment, Mic Drop. Mr. Ndlovu is also a playwright, a journalist, and is also a widely published scribe and a multilingual anthologized essayist and poet. He has done Shona, Ndebele, and English radio and teleplays. He's also the founder of Dorset Performing Arts, Midlands Poets, as well as High Voltage Poets, which are affiliates of Hodzeko Arts and Culture Association, where he is the board's information and publicity manager. He's also the communications manager for Midlands Natural Resources Agenda Trust. He's going to be just telling us more about his story and his journey as a literary person. Mr. Ndlovu, thank you very much for joining us here on Heart and Soul Radio. Please just tell us more about yourself. Who is Dumisani Ndlovu? And I know you have come a long way in literature and performing arts. May you just please take us through some of your experiences.
Well, thank you so much for hosting me. I am far more impressed to be part of this program, which is of paramount importance. I was born and bred in the Midlands province. My acting talent was identified by my primary school teacher, Mr. Mambo, at Bumburi Primary School in Kweru. And my writing talent was identified by my secondary school teacher at Dorset Secondary School in Shurugwi, Mr. Leonard Mashanise. The two teachers really played a pivotal role in encouraging me to continue writing and acting. I remember I used to write compositions and poems that my Shona, Ndebele and English teachers often asked me to read aloud and perform at the school assembly. After completing my O level, I co-established a theater group by the name Dorset Performing Arts, which at its infancy managed to produce quite a thrilling radio play by the name Imcimbi Cimbi kaSathane. And between 1999 and 2008, the theater group managed to produce more than 60 Shona and Ndebele radio productions produced by ZBC Smaploti Juvani, Inglam Nyati, Justin Maposa, Simon Pashomancube, Thulani Siziwa, and Musa Pilime of the then Radio 4 and Radio 2, now known as National FM and Radio Zimbabwe. And we were these productions, to be honest, received overwhelming response. My group's short plays blended by acrobatic moves were also produced by Tula Dlamini and Hailey Velapimlangen from Montrose Studio, and were also televised on ZTV program by the name Teen Scene and other programs. Concerning poetry, I'm also pleased to say over 20 Shona English and Ndebele poems, that is radio poems, were aired on National FM, Radio Zimbabwe and the SFM.
Very much, Mr. Ndlovu. You are more than welcome. I must say your artistic background is very, very impressive, and what you have been able to realize in your creative journey will actually leave a lasting impression in the community. Now tell me, how have these experiences assisted in the development of Dumisani Ndlovu, and also what is it that you hope to achieve through poetry and performing arts?
Well, these experiences taught me how to perfect and professionalize my artwork. In other words, I learned that arts, if done in a proper way, can be big business. Since then, I started making a living through arts. A lot of my income came from writing newspaper articles, the columns, radio and television content. You know, rubbing shoulders with popular radio and the television personnel really improved the way I talk, the way I do my creative work, the way I, interact with other people, and the network with the different. It helped me. It shaped me in networking with the different people, including high-profile figures. This also helped our group, Dorset Performing Arts and Wotseko Arts and Culture Association, to adopt a push-start approach with the aim of graduating our affiliated individuals and groups to the cutthroat world of multi-arts business, with better chances of making them survive, sustain, grow, and generally creating employment through arts. In what I hope to major, I am thinking big. I and my arts association board members passionate about creating a tangible and virtual platforms that supports arts entrepreneurship, where both the rural and urban arts groups, individual artists, and even the community develop sustainable business ventures through arts. If resources permit, I would like to establish a very big arts academy in the Midlands province, where I will produce artistic content and nurture young and early stage urban and rural artists, as I've mentioned, helping them to survive and grow during startup period, especially when they are most vulnerable.
Your persistence will actually get you there. I believe with what you have been able to accomplish in your creative journey so far, that is evidence enough of the potential of your capabilities. Now tell me, what sort of projects are you currently working on, and how has the global crisis of COVID-19 affected your literary as well as your performance art? And also, how have you been able to face up to these challenges in order for you to continue participating in these activities?
Thank you so much for provoking a very sensitive question. Ever since the country went into the total lockdown, we were not spared. Life has not been rosy for me and our arts association. Our annual calendar was critically affected, leading to our 35 massive fundraising projects being cancelled. Chief among these projects were book launches. We intended to do our inaugural arts festival, performing arts, in different venues. In other words, we had booked in advance, shows in advance. We were intending to send our upcoming artists, that is poets and models. We wanted to send them for district, provincial and national competitions. We were also intending to do workshop, visual and performing arts training workshops in the Midlands primary schools, and everything was above board. The ministry had approved us to do so. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19, we had to shelve this project. Anyway, we are not folding hands. Currently, we took this challenge as an opportunity, and currently we are working on a project which that is radio play project, where we intend to do. Currently, I'm working on quite a number of short stories and poetry anthologies, as well as radio and television scripts, where with a goal to empower COVID-19 affected communities and raise awareness on the environmental impact of destructive mining through community radio as a platform to inform, educate, entertain, help find and share solutions to these wicked problems. We as well intend to demystify stereotypes and diffuse dangerous fake news about coronavirus and the environment.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ndlovu. Now coming to the performance side, of your poetry. In the year 2019, I invited you to participate in the 3rd anniversary of what was formerly called Up in Smoke Poetry, which is now called God of Consciousness Poetry. You participated in this event with your group High Voltage Poets, which is a group that comprises of your twin brother Siphosa Ndlovu, as well as a young man called Lesson Ndlovu. I must say your performances are top notch. You left the audience in awe, and your acts are really electrifying. And the audience, you could tell how perfect you were in interacting with the audience, and how they responded to your performances. Now, Love, tell us more about High Voltage Poets from Gweru. What is this group all about?
Well, thank you so much for your quite encouraging compliment. High Voltage Poets is a Gweru-based poetry group which consists of about 20 poets, of which the majority are young poets aged between 7 and 18. Our core business is to identify, nurture, sharpen and market talent. As we speak, last year we had quite a number of our young poets, 5 to be specific, who participated in different competitions, of which 4 managed to excel in different competitions, including the Star Bright National Finals, the likes of Leseni Tumoluhle Ndlovu and Fungai Goronga, among others. Thank you so much for hosting me. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I wish this station and the listeners the best.
Before I ask you to read out or recite some of your poetry, I just want to ask you, what do you think of the state of Zimbabwean literature, and what is it that can be done to sort of improve the Zimbabwean book sector, and probably find a way to get back to the Renaissance era that saw the emerging of writers such as Tsitsi Dangarembwa, Yvonne Vera, Charles Mungoshi, just to mention a few. What do you think it is that can be done today, maybe to just assist in revisiting and reclaiming that former glory of Zimbabwean literature?
The major problem is piracy. Piracy has become so cancerous. It has jeopardized creative work. Authors getting absolutely nothing, literally nothing from their hard work. They spend sleepless nights writing and doing, but unfortunately they get nothing out of it. Due to this cancerous. What is of surprise is quite a number of academic institutions, both primary and secondary, even at university level, they fought by heavy duty machineries only to kill artists. They photocopy their books and sell those copies at almost nothing, leaving an artist and throwing an artist, exposing an artist to abject poverty. And with the time, they end up laughing and saying, labeling artists all sorts of things, names. I think the government, it's high time the government must craft super arts policies and strict laws that in a bid to curb piracy. I think that's the way we can try to, bring back the literal world, literal arts back to its former glory.
Thank you very much. Well noted. May you please just go ahead and pleasure us with some of your poetry.
My name is Dumisani Ndlovu. They usually call me High Voltage Poet. I'm a member of Gorge of Conscious. I'm going to recite a poem entitled Cry My Spirit. It is a social justice, it's a cry for social justice, where it advocates for fair and equal distribution of wealth, opportunities and privileges within a society. Valiant, variant, vaulting spirit tortured. Spirit torturers tortured my spirit. Cry, my spirit, cry. Cry for the done deeds of undone. Cry for the unjust, justifiable justice. Cry for the malicious prophets of doom. Cry for the bogus good Samaritans of doom. Cry, my spirit, cry. Cry, cry. Cry for the decamping, marauding big shark. Cry for the unfolding humanitarian catastrophe. Cry for the incorrigible, fragile corrections. Cry for the mind-boggling social culture of despotism. Cry for the decadent economic and political graveyard. Cry, my spirit, cry. Cry for the barricaded democratic road. Cry for the majority oppression by the minority. Cry for the political repression and corruption riddled world. Cry for the alarming artificial economic meltdown. Cry, my spirit, cry. Cry for the weave and sprayed crisis. Cry for the carefree and controlled political madness. Cry for the braved harassment, brutal beatings, acrimonious imprisonment, and ceaseless monotonous death threats. Cry, my spirit, cry. Cry for having endured fierce political and heart-wrecking social environment. Cry for having reached the bottom of its patience. Cry for the broken-mindedness. Cry, my spirit, cry. Cry for fighting the mindset of untold and copious misery. Cry for having the courage to cry. Cry, my spirit, cry. Cry, cry, cry.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ndlovu, for that. That is high quality poetry, poetry in high definition indeed. I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you very much for joining us here on Heart and Soul Radio and being part of the experience. We wish you all the best in your artistic career, and may you continue impacting all the positives in your community. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for hosting me. Thank you, listeners, for listening. May God bless you. I love you all.
Thank you. May you continue to shine. On a rather sad note, as we conclude our segment, on Sunday, we received the sad news of the passing on of a legend of the Zimbabwean literature scene, Mr. David Mongoshi. It is with great sadness that we received this news, and I just want to take this opportunity to dedicate the next recital to the remembrance of the legendary works of Mr. David Mongoshi. It's a poem that was originally written by Mr. Mongoshi and recited by Blessing Dube.
Greetings to you. I'm Blessing Dube. I'm the professor of logic, an ardent literary explorer and communication scientist. I'm the voice of serenity and sanity. I'm a secondary school teacher by profession and a writer by DNA. a proud member of the Guard of Consciousness, a platform for both seasoned and upcoming writers. On a certain note, Zimbabwe, the literary fraternity has been robbed of a great literary doyen, David Mgoshi. However, according to me, the death of a legend is not death at all. It is rather a transition from the physical human form into a spiritual incarnation. Death is neither fatal nor final. Thus, David Mgoshi has been ushered into legendary immortality, and his poetic decibels will continue to resonate in our lives, caressing our writing spirit to keep pushing on. I shall now recite one of his poems as tribute to the great writer. The title of the poem reads, "Now That the Well is Dry." He wrote this poem in memory of Dr. Bimbai Chibaura. Now that the well is dry. The water was quiet and unruffled, though intemperate winds blew on it. Never once did it ever really stir, and we got so used to its pervasive presence. In line with global trends everywhere, we took notice only when loud waters bubbled. Like wayward children, we scoffed when delectable words of wisdom wafted like therapeutic mist out of a wisdom well. But now that the well is empty and dry, our deprivation begins in earnest, and soon, very soon, nostalgia will whip us, one and all, till we learn the bitter lesson. That second chances belong to storybooks only, now that this veritable repository of the true wisdom is in other dimensions. Our dilemma cries out, who amongst us shall quench our thirst, now that the water in the well has dried up? Thank you, Zimbabwe.
You're listening to Heart and Soul Radio Station.